Sociolinguistics, one of the branches of interdisciplinary linguistics. The term sociolinguistics is used generally for the study of the relationship between language and society. Obviously, society is composed of people and people use a language. So, under this very heading of sociolinguistics, we study the speech habits of a certain community. A speech community is a group of people who shares a set of norms and expectations regarding the use of language. So we all know that every speech community uses language in a certain way. So it expects from the language to fulfill certain purposes. And these are discussed under the very heading of sociolinguistics. The study of the linguistic features that have social relevance for participants in those speech communities is called sociolinguistics. So this is another definition of sociolinguistics. Linguistic features that have social relevance. For example, the language of the upper class, the language of the lower class, register, varieties. People living in the same society sometimes always have some differences on the basis of their groups. So these all are discussed under this very heading of sociolinguistics. So social dialect. Dialects is defined that the way people use a certain pronunciation or certain set of vocabulary, or the way they set certain constituent of the sentence. So these all three things form a dialect. So it is social class that is mainly used to define groups of speakers as having something in common. So with the help of these dialects, we can differentiate different social groups of the society. Sociolinguistics differs from sociology of language in that the focus of sociology of language is the effect of language on the society, how language affects the society, whereas sociolinguistics is different from sociology. While sociolinguistics focuses on the society's effect on language, how society affects the language, how, for example, poor people affects the language, how the literate or the learned people affect the language, how the upper class affect the language. So these features are discussed under sociolinguistics. It also studies how language varieties differ between groups separated by certain social variables. So as I said, within a social group there are certain sub-social groups, and we study that how they are different in using language from each other and one another. For example, ethnicity, the people belonging to certain linguistic groups, how they are different from each other. Religion, people from belonging to different religions use different type of language. Status, obviously, the upper class people, the elite class, the middle class, the lower middle class, the lowest of the strata of society, they use language. It may be English language, but they use so differently from each other that sometimes the comprehension of one group by the people of the other group is difficult. So gender, there are differences of using language by male and female. Even the age group is also very important. The people of the past, for example, let's take the word flower, hour. The internal vowel sound is hour. This was the sound that used by old people in England, and the middle age people omit the internal oo sound and flower. And the younger generation tend to pronounce the word flower. So all these things are studied by these sociolinguists. Age, level of education. Obviously, education plays a very important role in determining the type of language that you use. And I also gave you an example about age. How creation and adherence to these rules is used to categorize individual in social and socio-economic classes. So, with the help of the rules that we derived, we determine classes of the people. For example, middle class are the people who have spent more years in education, and they haven't had manual labor, whereas the lower strata of the society, they have manual labors and spend no or lesser years in school. So they form their own groups of linguistic identity. Education and occupation, as I told you, that people in certain occupation have certain types of linguistic groups. So they use language different from each other. Unique circumstances of every life result in each of us having an individual way of speaking, a personal dialect or idiolect. So all of us are different from each other. Maybe if the member of the same family have differences, one of the person in the family has received a very high education, so his dialect will be different from the other members of the society, or one of the member has traveled to city or gone back to some rural area. So all these differences affect the way these people use language. Social markers. When we speak language, there are certain markers in our speech which determine that which class we belong to. So features occur frequently in one's speech or not mark you as a member of a particular social group, whether one realizes it or not. For example, the illiterate people generally, when they are pronouncing the ing suffix in a word like sit and ing, instead of the last sound they do not pronounce the sound, they pronounce sit-in or drinking instead of drinking, right? So these are the differences which set people apart from each other on these linguistic markers.